thank you guys all so much for joining us early on a Sunday and kind of doing this emergency Best Made Weddings podcast. I had a wonderful catering discussion with Act 3 Catering and Tuxedos and Tennis Shoes and Chef Navi that we were going to post tomorrow. And obviously that's blown out the window now with all this, no receptions and weddings. So I just kind of wanted to get everybody together. I know Kelly and I were talking about this on like Thursday right after it happened. And I said, hey, let's get just some good voices together and get kind of a conversation going about, how people are processing the news, if you guys have heard from your clients, and then kind of, some ideas. And we'll get into all that too. So Shiloh, why don't we just start with you? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
I'm Shiloh Abbott. I am the owner and lead planner of the Bubbly Soirée.
And Callie, what about you?
Hey, I'm Callie Holcomb with Holcomb Weddings and Events out of Tacoma.
And Kelly, who's responsible for getting this whole thing together, who are you?
My name is Kellie Blair, and you're responsible, not me. I am the manager of Historic 1625, an event venue in Tacoma.
So Kelly, why don't we just start with you? Obviously, we were kind of texting real time on Thursday. This is obviously in response to the updated regulations about the Governor Inslee saying no wedding receptions, severely limiting the number of guests and everything. So what was kind of your reaction hearing it real time, and what was kind of that process like?
Yeah, I mean, I had gotten word kind of early in the week that there was going to be Inslee's announcement on Thursday of something important wedding related. Didn't really know to the extent of what it was going to be. And I think when it just obviously I was just mentally prepared for a limited number. I think just tailoring it back because I felt his initial allowance was pretty generous in what was allowed. But seeing kind of the COVID numbers spike and then knowing what we were allowed to do, I was mentally prepared to taper things back. But I think there was obviously a shock value when, it says no reception, 30 people only. It's like, great. That puts us at like 25 guests and maybe a few people working, and that's that. And totally changed the world. So I think Thursday night, I feel like I got, slapped in the face, punched in the gut, kicked a few times. It was one of those days I opened a bottle of wine for dinner, but I think I was just kind of like shocked and just kind of numb and kind of processed it. And now digesting it. Now what's our game plan is kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Kelly, what about you?
Well, we, like I said, like Kelly knows, we kind of were like waiting for something to happen, and it was hard. I mean, here's the thing. We're watching this all happen, and my phone is blowing up right here just next to me, like with brides are like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And especially with a couple who has a wedding on the 7th of August that was completely planned. And now it's, now we're essentially changing game plans again. And, that's just one of our many clients. But, I think that like part of this is dealing with the process of the change. And I think that a lot of these couples, like we've all kind of gone through, this, it's almost like, I don't know, like 7 law, or what is it? Grief, whatever the whole, there's 7 stages of grief, whatever it is, or 12, I don't know, whatever. But like, I feel like our couples also need to like go through that process in order to like shift. And so like the conversations we had on Thursday are totally different than the conversations that we had like even yesterday and this morning. It's like they finally need to like process it. And I just think like all of us, we all need to process it too. But yeah, we were kind of expecting it, but I think that the fact that they were like no receptions really put like the kind of the dagger into the whole piece too.
Yeah. Shiloh, what about you?
It felt like a big, like, okay, you like that kind of finalizes a lot of stuff. And it's, again, what both the gals said, like we knew that something was coming. We just didn't expect it to be that. And it's just so devastating. It just felt like a big blow. And I mean, just like Callie said, like conversations that I had an August 8th wedding. It was all planned out. We had literally the day before just finalized everything. I had my waivers in place. They were ready to go, do everything by the book. And then boom, 2 days ahead of it, is when everything stops. So it's like, what do? You just go into damage control. You start figuring out what the best alternative would be if there is one. You're trying to process what exactly this all means, and lots of emotions.
Yeah, I think it's so hard too, just because I think a lot. Well, at least I know I had, May blown out, June blown out, July blown out, except for kind of limited engagements. But, our kind of mid-August on couples really were holding pretty firm, and our one like on the 15th, I think I was telling Kelly, when we were texting, like booked year and a half ago, paid in full, like never a waiver at all, like a waiver of this is going to happen. And now you're like, what are we going to do? Right. And so I do think that it's like, where it's such in the heart of the season now, where I do think that people really thought we would have something else at this point, is really tough. What kinds of conversations have you guys been having with your clients? Shiloh, we'll start with you and circle back around. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had a myriad of, different talks, but what is the general consensus or, vibe?
I immediately had a couple cancels that were just like, forget it. We're going to next year. We're not dealing with this. I've had lots of conversations with the August 8th couple. They've ended up canceling that altogether. They're looking at possibly eloping. I think that they're so overwhelmed with everything that they just can't even think about trying to do, because they were going to be out of town. So, they're talking about moving it closer, and you just go through all of these different things. And it's like, I think that some people are still processing it. I have a couple who lives out of town that they were in town this week, and I talked to them before the announcement and then after. And it's like, they're like, we can't even process this until we get home. So it's just, everyone has their own process. Everyone has different situations with whatever family's coming into town, or whether they want to just go and do a small ceremony at this point. It's on a case by case basis.
Callie, what about you?
I would say that I'm like same Shiloh, like that. I have a lot of clients that are like, I'll talk to you next week. And I'm like, go for it. Like, have the time to sit through it, talk through it, feel it out, and make a decision that's right for you. And then I have had 3 or 4 this morning and over the weekend that are like, so we're going next year. Okay, let's do it. So, and for us, I'm letting all of our clients know that like, we're here for you no matter what. And there's really no like wrong way to do any of this. I mean, other than have a reception now, you can't do that. But, like the decisions that they're going to make, it's like, you can either have a small intimate ceremony now, you can have a secret ceremony now, and then have a big, huge party next year. Or you can just say, forego the whole thing and get married next year. I mean, I think what we're finding with a lot of our clients is that a lot of the reasons they're getting married this year have a lot to do with, the next steps of their life. They want to have babies. They want to buy homes. They, want to finish school. There's a lot of things that like each of our couples are going through. And I think that like deciding what's best for them at this time and giving them the space to do that and saying like, hey, here's some options. You don't need to make a decision today, but like, just let you know, like, here's some options for you now. And we're here to support you, whatever that means. And so, I think that a lot of our clients are just, it's an emotional time, and just hearing a couple options that might sound maybe not ideal at the time, but as they go through it, I feel like it helps them.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, I'm sure you were fielding a lot of calls, at Historic, both, Thursday night and Friday, and I'm sure, continuing to get emails and stuff. What's it kind of been for you guys?
Yeah, so with every announcement, we try and touch base with those impacted. And essentially Thursday, I just kind of took that night to just kind of process things. I touched base with, August couples, got on the phone immediately with one of our couples who had already postponed for May. They were gung-ho ready for late August, and had Thursday morning just emailed me and said, hey, we touched base with our whole guest list. We have, 85 people coming. Like, we want to do this. And then I had to call them and be like, well, your decision's been made for you, unfortunately. And like, it's just an emotionally draining conversation. But tried to really get ahead of it. By the time this airs, I'll have touch base with every single 2020 couple, and just picking up the phone or emailing, hey, let's chat, what's going on, just to kind of feel out where everyone's at. And there's really the spectrum. I mean, I always like have to process the news of the announcement, and then have to process like, great, now I have to have these 50 phone calls and these 50 conversations that usually aren't that exciting and that fun. But I think our couples are kind of all over the place. Some are wanting to postpone 6 months, year out, something like that. But there's also couples who like still want to plan as normal for the fall, and like think at some point we're going to be able to have a reception. And those conversations are always hard, because I mean, I think I've been very hopeful during this. And if you had told me like, we're not going to have a 2020 wedding season back in February, March, I would have been like, you're crazy. I will have lost my mind. Like, that's insane. And I'm just trying to have, talk to these couples and be like, I don't think your October wedding is going to happen with 200 people in a reception. Like, I hate to say that, and I would love if we could. So there's just kind of the spectrum. I would say a lot of people for the fall are taking their time to just process it, to talk to friends and family, to figure out what they want to do. A lot of people are just kind of holding off to make a decision because there's no rush and they want to wait this out. But people are kind of all over. I mean, it's not fun having those conversations, but it's also, I mean, I think I was trying to find a silver lining. I think the silver lining of COVID is I've gotten to know a lot of our couples this year more than I normally would have. As a venue, we're not overly hands-on. We're more hands-on than some venues, but I really have like personal relationships with a lot of these couples, which is my little silver lining. But I hate, having to have this. I mean, I dread it. Like, it's not fun kind of talking and being like, this day you've dreamed of your whole life is not happening how you thought. And here's your options. And it's not a great option, but 30 people ceremony only is not great, but how can we get you the day that you've been wanting?
Yeah, it's so hard because I was totally guilty with that too. I mean, I remember back, we had, right when this all started, we had one of our Memorial Day wedding couples, she was messaging me about stuff, and I'm like, this is gonna be good. Like, we'll be, I was like, end of May, like, we'll be totally fine. And I remember even talking with Alan Chitlick, who's been on the podcast, a DJ, and he says, I just remember back him saying, like, if we're still having these conversations in August, the country will be in really terrible shape if this is like still a thing, but it is, and we are. And so it is kind of,
here we are.
Yeah, it is. So in thinking about how to kind of frame this conversation today, I know that there's going to be a lot more regulations that come out, tomorrow, or clarifications. So I don't want to incredibly date anything. So, I want to talk about, things that we know and things that hopefully will be, still acceptable. Before we started recording, I don't like the idea of looking at some of these regulations and trying to find things that are, outside of, like nitpicking something in it. I like to look at these things as kind of the spirit of, whatever they're trying to get across. And I do in talking with Dorothy yesterday, I think having, 30 people at a ceremony is very different than having 30 people at a reception. As much as people don't want to, couples or whoever don't want to hear that, like, it is different. And I equated it to Dorothy that if someone's giving a toast at a reception and I as a videographer have to go up and like adjust the microphone, that might be like a little odd, but you would be like, okay, like we're trying to get the best thing we can. If I walked up in the middle of a ceremony and tried to like fiddle with the priest's microphone or whatever, that would be like a really odd thing because of like the sanctity and just kind of like everyone being in place and how it is. So I think that's kind of my thought process behind it. I know, Callie, when you were talking about giving a couple some options and things that you guys are working through, what are some of those things that you guys have been talking about?
Yeah. Well, basically we're just giving the options to the clients to say, like, and asking the questions first, what's important? Is the party important? Is the ceremony important? And like really trying to pinpoint, or is the overall day important? Like really trying to figure that, help them sort of process even what they think is the most important part. And then, going from there, if dancing at your wedding is a really big deal to you, which a lot of my couples, I mean, girls and guys and moms and dads, and like that's a big part of the tradition of a wedding for a lot of couples and a lot of families. And if you can't have that at your wedding, it really puts like that's not a real, I mean, of course you have a ceremony and everything, but like the party's not there and the anticipation and the excitement's not there. So in that case, I'm recommending like, let's push off for a whole nother year. Let's have a big party next year. Let's have if it's important for you to have a ceremony this year and for you to be married in 2020 for whatever reason, let's have a ceremony this year and push off the party to next year. For some couples, honestly, I have quite a few couples that are like, the guy or girl's like, I wanted a backyard wedding to begin with, and I'm really having all the pressure to have this huge party. And this is like a blessing in disguise because I get to actually have the really intimate ceremony that I really, really wanted without all of the mumbo jumbo and everything. And in that case, I'm letting couples say, I'm like, let's elope. Let's have that 30-person ceremony. Let's let you walk down the aisle. Let it be really, intimate and amazing. So, for us, it's just, trying to figure out, because all of our couples are different, all of our families are different, and it's just helping them navigate what they really want and helping them get to that next point. So
that's good. Shiloh, what about you?
Same kind of thing. It's totally a case by case basis. The people who have wanted to postpone have done it because they can't have the ceremony and wedding that they've always envisioned, and so it just makes sense to push things off to next year. There are still people who want both, so they'll possibly do a small ceremony, which, I mean, I guess we have to be happy that that's still allowed. So, they'll do that with their closest family and friends, and then, they'll be married. So they'll get that done, and then they can move on. And I think a big part is that these couples have been waiting so long, and they've gone through so many emotions to get to this point, that having Thursday's announcement was just kind of like, okay, we're either doing this or we're not. And if we're doing it, this is what it's going to be like. No more questions. Just let's pick something to do. And so I think that in a way is helping people. There's not the go-between, but it's just hard. So they're all just trying to figure it out, and we're there to help them with whatever.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, certainly the thoughts go with everyone. I mean, that's what I've said, all along with, I just feel so bad. I remember planning a wedding and it was hard enough. And now it's like, let alone dealing with all this. Kelly, I know that you guys have talked about doing some, smaller elopements and things at the venue. Are you guys, how are the conversations going? Are you trying to, still be accommodating for people and what they can do right now? Or how are those conversations, or are you still, and you could certainly still be building that stuff out, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're still working on kind of how we want to pivot our business and what's going to be our game plan for kind of the rest of the year. But in talking with couples, a lot of them are looking at themselves and kind of just understanding why they're getting married, and kind of looking at it like, we want to get married because of, the marriage, the commitment, that part. And there's a lot of those couples who are like, want to get married. Like, the party's not as important. It's important. They want to celebrate with their friends and family, but like, they want to be able to make that commitment to each other. And, we've always, during this whole time, like, offered in our postponement options kind of like a complimentary small ceremony. And so we do have, a few couples who are wanting to, tie the knot now and then celebrate later. And so it's something that we've kind of been talking about for a while, just never really had to cement the details because, we weren't really in the world of doing it. But now that's the only world we're in, is doing those small ceremonies. And so we're definitely working on options just to be able to release, and excited to be able to celebrate with those who want to celebrate. Since this whole COVID nonsense started, we haven't had a wedding since March 13th. That was our last one. And we get one under the radar August 2nd. So during all the changes and everything, we're just gonna get one wedding in. And it's crazy to look. I mean, our calendar is widened out. There's names that have been in there since the spring, then now the fall, and now, disappearing. But we're trying to just still, I think, process the emotions in those conversations with clients before we can think about ourselves, kind of playing the therapist punching bag role that comes with the industry. But we're working on it, and we have some small ceremonies coming up with some clients. So it'll be exciting to just have something to celebrate, see them kind of a little shining light during all of this. So it'll be exciting to kind of make that happen.
Yeah, it's tough with the 2-week, the whatever they call it, the moratorium, or the grace period, whatever, and it's it ends right before like 8/8, which is one of the most popular dates of the year.
You already lost 6/6, now 8/8, now 10/10. Yeah, year fun dates is no more.
I know, and it's getting to the point, where like I said, I look at my own calendar, and it's like every day in September, October, November that everyone's like push stuff to. And now it is scary to think if it's, how long it's going to continue. And obviously, we don't want to like fear and speculate, but it is worrisome to wonder how long, the reception bans is going to go. What are you guys thinking about trying to incorporate some other details and things into, the ceremony? Or I know there's been some posts about, maybe doing like readings, but having to be some sort of toasts and things to make it feel like it's a little bit more including some of those things. Have you guys seen any of those posts that I've seen? Have you thought about any of that stuff? Just trying to give, couples planning like tangible ideas that they can work with, to build out their ceremony a little bit more. Kelly, you're nodding. Have you seen any of that?
I have, yeah. I've heard talks of it and seen it. I think, and I also had those conversations with some clients. I think some people are, who are wanting the intimate, the small little ceremony. They still want the wedding day experience or want to be able to look back and have those photo moments, I guess. And so some people are, chatting about doing, instead of like the ceremonial, like unity candle, coming together and cutting the cake, because that's, symbolic, the same thing of sorts. And some of them just want, we want to cut a cake and have a cute little cake, or doing toast or hearing from friends and family. So I'm having those conversations. It's just hard to kind of play with the gray area or think about, loopholes, devil's advocate, when we don't really have solidified details of what's allowed and what's not. And so it's kind of just what if conversations, or doing meals to go, or how do you still have, a wedding day experience within a ceremony only limit. So I'm seeing those posts, I'm having those conversations, kind of seeing what other people do. And just kind of, curious to see what's going to be allowed and what's not. And kind of, we're creative in this industry, so we're going to get creative with no matter what. But how is it being creative within what's allowed versus being creative and doing something that we know we're not supposed to and trying to justify it? So I think that's kind of the struggle right now.
Yeah. Callie, what about you? I saw you kind of nodding.
Yeah. I'm having a lot of out of the box ideas coming out. And I think that that's like, I feel like our industry, it's very traditional and we have a very systemized way of things, and that people know. And I think that like part of this is just saying like, okay, what can we do within the restrictions and how can we still make this amazing? And I even had a bride say she's getting married on 10/10 and she's like, well, we haven't finalized anything. She may or may not, but the option is like, what if we got married at the Starbucks that we had our first date? Like, what if it's just the two of them and the officiant and like everyone's just standing around with coffee? And I know it sounds like really funky and weird, but like, these are like little things that are like kind of funky. I'm like, is it even possible? Can we do that? I don't know. But like, that's kind of a fun thing to do. And it is that moment and it is their day. And so it's like, how can we create something that's more than maybe, it's outside the box. But like, even for us, like we put together an elopement package right now just to help all these couples, and we're partnering with venues and we're just doing elopements, and because there's a lot of couples that they don't want to think about anything at this point. They're like, I want to get married to the love of my life and we can have up to 30 people. Here it is. Here's, photographer, here's the music, here's flowers, get married. And then, from that point on, they're up to do whatever they're going to do. But for us, it's just, we're just creating some fun things. And I do think I love the idea, like having, like a cake cutting instead of a stand ceremony. Like, I think that's so fun. And like, those are things, if that's important to you to have a cake cutting, then let's just do it, or maybe you spin that bride down the aisle, or as you walk down and that's your first dance, is that you dance your way back down the aisle. So, kind of putting some of those things in place.
Shiloh, what about you?
I've been talking to clients about figuring out how we can work in the cake cutting during the ceremony and things like that. Having conversations about like, okay, if we're going to do this in the backyard, let's, you don't need the basic like white resin chairs. Like, let's rent some cool sofas for people to sit in and have it be like a fun garden party type thing. Just changing it up and elevating your traditional views on what a wedding looks like, and thinking of different ideas as to how to change it up a little bit. And I think that's my silver lining in trying to look at all this, is that we're becoming more creative and having to think outside the box for ceremonies and weddings in general, and just looking at like, okay, well, if we can't do this, what else can we do? And that kind of thing. And so I think that's nice. Same thing we said, I think that elopements are great. I think that the more that you can package them together and let these poor couples not have to worry or think about anything, just like go and get married, because they've already worried so much through this year, that let's make it easy for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I love the idea of, the creativity and really trying to figure out what's important within the rules, right? I think that, whatever my advice would be, for anybody, trying to get married still, any of the weddings, we've been live streaming a ton of weddings since kind of all this has gone on, and all of the ceremonies that we've done have been safe, within the rules, all that stuff. And I'm trying to think, the two actual like receptions we've done were unsafe, right? And they were outside of now what would be allowed, and that's probably because of receptions like I did, and we had a photographer roundtable a couple weeks ago, and they talked a lot about the receptions that they did, and they weren't safe, right? And this is probably why this happened, right? Where it's not, these decisions aren't like arbitrary, where it's like, well, I think like I do agree with a lot of what the rules are, because that is what I saw, and that is what every vendor that I've talked to on this podcast for the last 9 weeks has said, is that ceremonies were safe, and that when a lot of time and care was placed into that, and the receptions were not as much as good, as much as the couples had good will and intention. I don't think anyone tries to go out whatever and break the rules. But yeah, so I love the idea of having the creativity and really just downsizing that to what is so important, and just like getting it done and feeling like you're done with it and you can move on. And yeah, I totally agree. Go get married at the Starbucks and do that. I mean, I think that's great. Or, have an elopement and keep it really small. Kelly, I know that you attended a wedding that was like a Zoom wedding, and we do the live streams. We actually did a Zoom wedding yesterday with this company called Wedfully, which, if anyone, I would honestly recommend them. It was a really good experience. I think they're based out of like Denver, but they kind of coordinate like bringing in your guests and like putting together a slideshow and putting together a video and like breakout rooms. And it's like a whole thing. It's not like you're just watching whatever. Kelly, what was your experience with that for people that still, want to do a wedding and have it be safe and still incorporate, friends and family that way?
Yeah, so my cousin got married like back in April, maybe, in New York, and it was important to him and his wife. Timing just needed to. It was a little bit more urgent wise, not necessarily COVID. Just time was of the essence, and getting married in the Catholic Church was important. So they had, a very small wedding. It was my cousin Connor, and then his now wife. Just her family was there. Parents and siblings, and then the priest and the two of them. And so the church did like a live YouTube of the ceremony, which was really nice. So we got that live stream, and we all could watch that on our own. And then they had emailed out a Zoom link. So we all, hopped in a Zoom room. There's like 100, I don't know, a ton of us. And it was really fun. So we kind of all got on there and just kind of chatted with each other. And then my uncle led it. And there's a communal website that we could all be a part of. And so there's different activities on there, like making one of those like graphics where you all kind of describe a word, and then like the ones that get put in the most kind of get bigger. I don't know what they're called. So we got one of those, and then they got it printed and framed as like a present for the couple. And then my uncle essentially served as kind of the MC DJ of the evening. And, he called out people, and we did toast here and there, and everything was recorded. So they have that. And then we did dancing. So, all got up in our living, wherever we were, and, did the YMCA, did some of those fun dances. And then at one point, the couple made the grand entrance. So after they had, signed the papers and kind of celebrated, they then hopped on the Zoom and did an entrance. And back at the time I was like, oh God, like, is this going to be the norm or what's expected? But it was really cool. I think that there's a way to be able to have your intimate ceremony, but still be able to celebrate with your friends and family from a distance. And that's just a part of the whole pivoting and being creative, and how do we still do things. And so, shout out to my Uncle Mike, because this was like a really fun wedding. Yeah. Back in April or whatnot. And we could do it, yoga pants and nice top, and had our mimosas and all cheers. It was fun. But looking back, I was like, Uncle Mike, I think you kind of have an idea. You should, get going on this. But it's fun. And I think I've talked through that with some couples, and that's something that they're going to run with. So it's nice to know there are options, because it's important to celebrate with people who've supported you, and you want to make them a part of your day. But right now it's just, trying times and figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, I know we had talked about it and I am a little bit of a cynic, and I'll also admit when I was wrong, when I'm wrong in the past. And I remember you were telling me about that, and I think I laughed. And then even when this couple hired me, and I'm like, what is this site? And I look at the site and I saw the video, And they put together like a 5-minute thing, like, Zoom wedding, and this is what you can do. And like they were showing people like dancing. I'm like, this is all BS, right? Like, there's no way. Like, this is so dumb. Like, no one would ever do this. And
you have to buy into. I mean, at first I was like, "Oh God, like this is so awkward. I'm not gonna do the YMCA at 11 a.m. Come on, I already sat through a whole Catholic mass." But
I know.
I mean,
Well, no, yesterday they were Italian, so all their family was in Venice, and they had like 40 computers on the call, and they did their first dance, and by God, all those freaking people got up and they're all dancing in like their living rooms and wherever the hell, and it was like 8 at night, because we did it like in the morning with the time change and everything. But I mean, even the Carolyn or whoever the girl was that was my like tech person for the day, she's like, wow, like that was like really cool. And I was like, wow, I wouldn't have given $1,000 and thought that would have happened when we were booking that. So I will say, that was definitely something I recommend. Have Callie and Shiloh, have you guys had any experience with virtual stuff yet? Or have you had any talks with anybody about that? Do you think you might?
I wouldn't say anybody yet. I'm kind of watching that happen, but I will say that now I think people are becoming more curious, as to that next step. They never, and so I think that having it available right now, it's great because it's like, let's offer it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think that it's something that is definitely worth looking into, especially with people living out of the country or across the country or anything like that. Then it really brings people in. That sounds cool.
Are you guys worried about, and maybe Shiloh, we can start with you. Are you guys worried about, I know I had a couple weddings we were getting ready to book. We had an 8/8 we were talking to, because we've, however many we've lost on that date, and, a couple others. And they were like, hey, if we can't do it, like, we're not postponing, we're just like, we're not doing it. Like, we're just pulling the plug. Like, it's been too much. Have you heard that? Are you worried about that? Just couples just being like, you know what, like, F it. Like, I just can't, it's just too much. Cause I get it. Right. I mean, I totally get that it might just be too much. Have you had any of those talks yet?
I actually, I've had a lot of them throughout this entire thing, starting with a 4th of July couple all the way up to, now they're just people who had booked a long time ago, who just, as soon as COVID hit, they were like, nope. They waited for the end of May to make a decision when he was supposed to change things and open things up. But a lot of people just they haven't been able to just think about it. And so they just flat out canceled. And then even couples that I've booked since beginning COVID who have said, no, we're doing it. This is what we're doing. We are pushing through. And then they just went, nope, we're not doing it. We're done. So it's a case by case basis. And even couples who are fully ready to do everything, they were ready to wear the masks. We had talked about, what to do during dinner, what to do during their cocktail hour. They were going to do trivia with all their tables sitting down. And I mean, they were ready to go. And then as soon as Thursday hit, they were like, nope, we're moving. It's like, okay. All right. So you just never know. The people that you think are going to stick with it, you never know. It's always evolving.
Callie, what about you? Have you had some of those talks? I know they're hard.
Yeah. I mean, I've had right when this whole COVID thing hit, I had 3 or 4 clients that are like, forget it. We're just going to elope on the day of our wedding. We're not even having the ceremony, which was so, kind of going into that. And then now that like things have shifted even more, I've had a couple that are like, yep, we're staying hard to it. And some that are like, we already got married. We just said, forget it. We're done. Like, that was it. And I said, okay, and like that, no, to each his own, again, case by case basis. But it is surprising to watch the ones that are like, that you're like, oh, okay. And then the ones that you think are going to hold on are gone. And the ones that you're like, oh, they're going to be done. They're the ones holding on the hardest now. So it just changes every day.
Yeah. Kelly, what about you? Any of those hard talks?
Yeah, same. Obviously same. I think it's a little different just as a venue wise. It's with as plans change, just their need for us changes, I guess, too. A lot of people are, I would say the majority of them are holding out hope and wanting to still celebrate at some point. It's just kind of figuring out when that timing is going to be in the world. But some people are still doing smaller ceremonies, and with us offering the option to do a small ceremony there, a lot of them are grateful. They're like, great, it's all planned. We have somewhere to go. Because I think some people are just sick of thinking, sick of making decisions, sick of doing everything. And so I think probably less as difficult conversations than Callie and Shiloh, just because, I mean, we're just the venue part. So they're going to be with us or they're not, but most are holding on hope.
I think Callie's, how do I close?
Technical difficulty.
I'm here.
That's okay.
Something happened. Stand by. I'm here.
I'm going to mute
Finding
her
some gum like the last podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to mute Callie for a second there. No, but like she was saying, Callie was saying about, finding out that the couples, ended up getting married or whatever. It's so hard. And I was going to mention earlier when you guys, Kelly was talking about, reaching out to all the 2020 couples and whatever. That would be my, biggest advice of, anybody getting married. And then any vendor at all is making sure you email everybody. And I know that that's hard. And I know that that's scary sometimes because I do think I've talked with a lot of photographers and I think it's kind of this head in the sand, like, well, if I don't email them, then they're not going to cancel because they don't I don't know. It just seems like it's a weird, like you're afraid, right? And you're like, well, if I email them, then that's going to spook them and then they're going to whatever. And it's like, you can't, I don't know, like as soon as that Thursday thing happened, like, Dorothy and I walked and then came back and I said, I crafted whatever. And I got a lot of good response, I mean, the same way that my emails back in March and everything. And I think that, your couples just want you to know that you're thinking about them. But my advice, yes, would be for couples too, is like definitely letting people know, if you are thinking about changing the date and like what those dates might be, because there's nothing worse. I've heard so many vendors say like, hey, they picked a new date already. I'm not available. And now, it's like, and they didn't even have like a chance to, move whatever or try to be there. And that's what I've told everybody. Shiloh, what are you, what's some advice you're giving couples right now planning? I mean, I know it's hard. I know there's so many unknowns, but what are you, someone listening, whether it's a vendor or a couple, what would be some advice just to kind of get through everything right now? I mean, I know you've seen a lot of different stuff in your career.
I think that the big thing is to talk with your partner, talk with your family, look at your situation with your guests and see what works best, what your plans are for the next year. Figure out what's most important to you, like Callie was saying earlier. And it's like, is it to get married? Is it, do you have something life-changing happening in the next year? Do you want to have a baby? Do you need, is someone deploying? Is there a need to get married? And if so, let's figure out how to make a great ceremony. If you want to just delay, and if that's easier for you with everything that's going on to postpone, then let's do that. So I think it's again, back to the case by case basis, but I think that you need to look at talking to your partner and your families and figure out what's really important for everyone.
Kelly, what about you?
I think, in like being open and just having they're not fun conversations. And I think me personally, this is like the fourth round. I don't know how many rounds that I've had these draining conversations, and it wears on you. And I just always feel like I'm disappointing my clients, just having to tell them this news. Like, I feel like I'm the one who's, the bearer of bad news or whatnot. And I think me shifting that mindset has been huge. And so I think like advice to vendors is, knowing this is out of your control, but helping, using our experience, using all that we know and all our, past weddings. We're a tough industry. We go through a lot. And I think this is our time to shine and be there for our couples. They get one shot at this, but it's something that we typically do every weekend. But just not taking it personally. I know that's way easier said than done. But, building that relationship and just being there for them. I think just always in anything in life, knowing that you have someone to reach out to takes away a lot of the stress. So just being that someone for your couples is huge. And then I think advice to, couples is just, being patient, being, trying to have an open mind. I think it's tough. I think something that we deal with a lot as vendors is we kind of see a tunnel vision from our clients. It's like, to them, it's their biggest day of their life. And it's like on our end, we're dealing with 100 of you. And I think just telling couples, like, just be patient, be understanding, but reach out when you can. Just know, like, we're all digesting this too. But I think the COVID couples, the ones who kind of come out, are going to be probably some of the, strongest marriages that we see. I think they're going to be some of those couples who had time to, look at themselves, look at their relationship, look at their partner. And really, I think that these marriages are going to be some that, probably last longer than others. And I think that's going to be something sweet to see and really see them focused on the marriage part. And yeah, the party's important, but I think centering themselves on why they're getting married is something that these couples are going to have to do. And I'm excited to see the futures of the COVID couples.
Callie, are you done with your travel adventures? I'm going to unmute you now. How you're in a different space now? What's going on?
No, I literally had a dog barking at the door, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God. I was like, hold on. So sorry about that. I wanted to run into the other room. Yeah, so I'm back. I would say that, like, and I've been letting our couples know, I said, and that's the same thing, like literally letting them know that, like, these are the things, this is what marriage is about. And this is not about, you're talking about a wedding, but what you're dealing with is like marriage stuff. And that's a lot of our couples. It's like, you have to remember that you're having a wedding to get married, to deal, to start a life with somebody. And I think it's like trial by fire. I mean, this is the time that they're either it's like a make or break it thing. And I mean, I'm married 11 years this year, and I'm like, it is challenging enough, for this. And I think that, like, if these couples can go through this now, it will just make them stronger as couples. And, nobody wants to hear that in the present. Everyone's like, oh, I want to have a wedding. Like, I get it. Like, I'm a wedding planner. I want you to have a wedding. Duh. But, but like, like, remember that, like, this is a season. This is just a small thing. And you're going to look back at this at 50, 75, hopefully 75 years of marriage. And you're going to say, remember when we got married in the time of Corona and how crazy it was? And like, it was a blurb on the screen. And so trying to help them remember. And also, being engaged. I think a lot of couples forget that being engaged is also part of the process. And it's like, you get to be engaged to each other for a whole nother year. And you get to be like, remember, it's like you're almost extending the honeymoon time. So I'd say for our couples, it's just, trying to look at it from a really different perspective. I mean, I'm letting my couples know, I'm like, oh, that means I get to hang out with you a whole nother year. I'm super excited. Like, yay. And then some couples are probably like, okay, I just, I've been with you for like a year and a half. Like, I'm ready to get married, even though we're friends. But, and then for all of us, it's a ever changing topic that we have to remember too, that like, and I think for even our couples, like, we're also human too. Like, I've left when this, like, not left, but like, I went out of town, which is weird. You can't do this during the wedding season ever at all. And I left just to get my own head on straight, because I'm not good for any of my couples if I'm not filling my cup either. So, I think that, like, reminding our, like, vendors too, like, you got to take care of you, man. Like, take care of you. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, that was good. Yes, that was good. Yeah, that was an excellent answer. That was worth the moving from the marking dog. No, I just think, like, honestly, with everything going on now, if this hasn't been, I think the wake up call of just, we need to adapt our plans to this, and not trying to figure out, like, well, how can we adapt the plans to, like, what we want to do, or how can we, anybody, like, planning still, it's like, you need to, like, this needs to be a wake up call now. And if it wasn't before, and I really wasn't for, like, all the openings back when, and I know that a lot of people pushed for that. And I know that was obviously what, the industry wanted. But, I think that because of that, we're in a lot of, I think it would have been way easier to maintain this going or whatever than to, like, open the floodgate and then, close it again. And so that is hard. But I do think that, and I guess the last thing I wanted to touch on today was, and I saw someone post, I can't even remember, one of the groups, saying how, well, let's wait till next year where we can have, like, a real wedding, or we can do, we can have whatever, and not saying that, I know the wedding that we did yesterday, was amazing, was a real wedding, they're sitting there balling, I know the one that we did last weekend, 8 family members, it's all the emotions. And so I guess my final ask for all of you kind of going around would be talking about, that, and just making sure that, couples realize that you can still have, as memorable a day as you want to have right now and have it be as special as you want to be. Shiloh, I see you nodding. So let's go to you first and we'll crack this off.
I keep going back to weddings like 50 years ago, not even 50 years ago, looked completely different than how they do now. And so it was getting married in the church, going down to the basement or somewhere else for cake and punch. And that was it. And, between then and now, we've added the dancing, we've added everything else, which is great. But also, the point is to get married. So however you choose to do that, that is the true meaning of the day, is the two of you coming together, get married and become like a couple officially together. And so that's my thought on it right now, is that like, I think that sometimes with the parties, you can lose focus on the actual meaning of the day. And this has allowed us to go back and focus more on that. And like the true, like it's the two of you coming together with your families and your most supportive people there to support you, who truly love you and want to see you. So let's make it happen, and let's make it amazing for you. So
Callie, Kellie, let's go to you. Kellie, let's talk about this and the positivity of focusing on the couples and everything else right now.
Yeah, I think we do hundreds of weddings, and when we look back and we try and call it, Sally and Joe's wedding, the details kind of all blur. I think that's just kind of, weddings are weddings. But it's always those a handful of weddings always stand out for a certain reason, whether it was like the most amazing dance party, whether they got really creative with their food menu or something like that. And I think even as working weddings or as wedding guests, like weddings stand out for different reasons. And I think that this podcast will be case in point. This will be memorable because of Callie. Yeah. But I think this is really like couples' time to be different, stand out, and just create a memory for not only them, but their friends and family, and do something different. And also be like, remember, Corona, we were stuck in our house for months upon months. We only, we braved the grocery store, we did this, but remember how great it was to celebrate with, Ashley and Adam. Like, remember how great that was? I think now is just a time to not only stand out and create a fun memory, but also like be there for your friends and family and give them a day of just light and excitement in this weird world we're living in. And so like, to couples, I think really use this to your advantage and do something with it. You're never going to be, hopefully we're never in this situation ever again. But really just use it and do something different, create that special memory, not only for yourselves, but those close to you.
Yeah, I think
personalize it more.
Yeah. What was that, Shiloh?
You get to personalize it more.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Callie, are you done with your earthquake over there? What's up?
I'm telling you, I was really prepped for this. I had my notes all quiet. I had it set and ready to go. Like I was ready for this thing. And then I had to move into another room. Yeah, I'm ready to go. So I get back and forth. No, I mean, for our couples, I mean, we've done so many elopements over the years and so many weddings over the years. And the ones that I really remember are the ones. I'm telling you, Reed, I don't know. I might not be cut out for podcasts. I'm telling you, but I did get my coffee delivered from my sweet husband. And it's okay. So thank you. That was the best intro. Like it's about the little things. It's about the little things and all of this, and trying to remember that like the little things are what make you a couple, and it's not the party. It's not the thing. And it's like, how can we incorporate those amazing moments of our couple's lives into what it is? Like for my couple, they met at Starbucks, and she's like, what if we got a wedding at Starbucks? I'm like, how weird and funky is that? But like the fact that they've created these memories year after year of like going back to their same Starbucks, having the same cup of coffee every single year. And now we're thinking, hey, it's kind of fun. Like that would be kind of cool. Like I think it is remembering why you're doing it, and remembering and allowing yourself. And I think a lot of our couples are really allowing themselves to have those things that maybe they didn't think that they could have at their wedding because it didn't fall into the traditional box, and saying like, okay, let's do something fun. Let's do something funky, and even for a lot of our couples, maybe they couldn't have their dog at the part of their ceremony because maybe they were going to get married in a church. now they can get married on a beach and their dog can be a part of it. So, trying to look at the silver lining and say, here's what we can do going into this next year.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think we need to focus on what we can do and not what we can't do. And I think that it's tough. Like you said, we're all wedding professionals, and you want to have everyone have the biggest, wedding and spend the most money and have the best stuff, and it's tough, right? And obviously you want everyone to have a wedding video and have 10 hours of coverage and all this different stuff, and you're like, but you need to focus on what we can do and not lament what's not going to be. I think I don't know. I think everyone's lost a lot of stuff this year, and I think there's been a lot of changes, across everything. And so, yeah, I think not being able to have 300 people at your wedding and dancing and whatever, I think it is an okay compromise for everything that everyone has gone through, both professionally and personally. And so that would be kind of my last advice for that, would just be remember where we're living, and it's tough. So I lost my whole football league this year with my XFL. So
that's right. But we have hockey now. We have hockey.
We do. I ordered my Kraken hat, so it is coming. Follow me on Twitter at Crackmarks. So I got my, but no, I mean it's tough. So yeah, I think just looking at the positives. Any final thoughts? Any final words? I really appreciate you guys all coming on today. I know it's still a kind of a nebulous time and not really knowing what's happening, but I do think it's just important to keep having these conversations and focusing on positivity, which I think all of you guys did today. So I appreciate that, and some good ideas. Kellie, you seem to have something to say, so let's start the final roundup with you.
I always have something to say, right? I think just overall in life and wedding wise right now, I think just focusing on the positive and the silver lining is something that I challenge myself to do every day. And I think that, focusing on what we can do and what we can't do is just going to be, mentality of Corona. The sooner we kind of, follow what we're supposed to, the sooner we'll get out of this, hopefully. But I mean, I feel for my couples. I tell them all the time, like, I feel for you. I know this isn't easy. Like, wedding planning is enough as is, but to add this is a whole nother, layer of stress. And it's like, I feel bad for them. It's like, as a girl, you dream of your wedding day your entire life. And it's something you think about and have in your vision. And it's like sitting behind computers with your friends and family. Is that really what your dream come true? And so it's a struggle. Like, I feel for every one of my couples, and I'm struggling, managing personal and business right now. Just kind of, how do I be, the best support when I feel like I'm going crazy? But finding the silver lining, just being hopeful and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel is going to be, a huge mind shift. And yeah, I don't know. I really don't have much to say, Reed.
That's good. That's good though. That was a good, Shiloh, what about you?
Yeah, I think finding the silver lining is good. I think that just, taking in everything that you can and just embrace it for what it is. This is where we're at, and things are always changing. I adore my couples. I have really become friends with them, and we're talking, at least once a week, probably, just trying to figure out what to do, coming up with different ideas. And my heart goes out to them. It's been such a rough year. It's been so challenging. It's been so just ups and downs and everything, and ever evolving. So, I'm happy that I've been able to get to know them more. But also it's hard. It's hard for everyone. It's hard for the vendors too. I mean, we've been pushed around, and it just feels I saw someone, or did someone on this say, emotional whiplash. It's back and forth, and it's, the tears coming out, and it's hard to explain, but it's draining. But also, you can get married. So that's the name of the game. So let's make that happen, and let's make it amazing. You can still have flowers. You can still, get 30 people together and have them support you, which is a decent number. It's not 10. So, it's more than what phase 3 allows. So there are positives in this. It's just a matter of finding it and working with it and making it your own.
Callie, you get the big last final end words today. To lead us on, or leave us, with your words of wisdom. What do we have?
Yeah, and you guys all captured it really well. I mean, at the end of the day, we're giving our couples the options. I think that they have more options now. than maybe they thought in the previous. So for us, we put together an elopement package that we're offering our clients or even non-clients, to be able to have the beautiful ceremony with everything that they, maybe they want with their 30 friends, and making it, we're trying to just make it easy for them. I mean, just make it easy and seamless and like effortless. Cause at this point, everything's been very effortful. It's not even a word. But like just letting them enjoy at least one moment in time where they can come in, show up, look beautiful, take in the moment, and not have to work anything. That's what we're trying to do right now. No, not all of our clients are going to go for that, but you know what? There's quite a few people that are, and we're super excited to help them through that process. And then to continue to work through our 2021 clients, either postponed or new clients, to, hopefully look forward to the future of a normal wedding season, but knowing that like we've at least gone through all of this. So now this isn't, if we have to do this again, at least we know how to navigate it at this point. So we're here for them.
Absolutely. Yes. And I will say the little ceremony we did last week, the bride afterward, she said, this was so great. Like it really, I love this because I did not feel the stress of having to deal with all the other stuff. And it was, it was a venue where, they postponed but they were doing, you could use it, for free or whatever. But she said it was great. Like I got to hang out with my husband and we got to kind of do a little first look. And then we walked down the aisle and she's like, man, this would have been way crazier, if we would have had to deal with all the other stuff. So there are several silver linings, right? And there are, positives to look for. So I thought that was great. And I said, there you go. You had the best day ever. And it was 2 hours and now you're done, So anyway, thank you all so much for coming on. And I really appreciate you guys' time, early on the Sunday. And hopefully this won't be outdated tomorrow when they come out and say that no weddings at all.
Please no.
But
No.
But I do think, I think, the weddings, the ceremonies are set. I think receptions, I think we're getting into trouble calling them dinners. I think we're getting into trouble calling them, we're going to go across the street and do a gathering. I think we're getting into trouble with those things. So that would be my advice. And I think everyone seems to agree.
Yeah, I think the more trouble we make for ourselves, the longer we're going to be stuck in this world. So I think just pausing, putting ourselves in timeout is kind of what we need to do.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys again. And if you're listening, if you have a question for a future episode of the podcast, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/survey, and everything's organized by vendor type. You can leave questions and we can put together fun roundtables like this one. But thank you guys again. And thanks, Kelly, for putting this together. And good luck, everyone, navigating with all the, I'm sure there's many more emails and phone calls to come. So
yeah. Thank you, Reed.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Reed. Appreciate it.